President Trump is now back in Washington after an historic trip. On Sunday, he became the first sitting president to step foot in North Korea. His nearly hour-long meeting with Kim Jong-un has raised new questions about whether the U.S. will now drop its demand for full denuclearization. For more on where the policy goes from here, I'm joined now by Bruce Klingner, who served as the CIA's Deputy Division Chief for Korea and is now at the Heritage Foundation. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So the policy up until now of the United States has always been that North Korea must have full and rapid denuclearization. Right. From those you've spoken to, what do you make of the New York Times article that they could call for a freeze?
Well, it's inconsistent with things that I've heard from any U.S. official. They've always insisted that we have to have what is a UN requirement of complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization. So all the officials I've talked with have said North Korea has to commit to the UN definition of denuclearization, as well as abandoning not only production facilities, but its existing arsenal.
And President Trump has placed a lot of value on his relationship with Kim Jong-un. Do you think he's setting himself up for failure with that tactic?
Well, we've always failed so far in diplomatic engagement with the North. We've had 8 failed agreements for denuclearization because North Korea has cheated or not fulfilled on them. But also, I think the president is prioritizing this relationship over really the policy or the strategic objectives. In a way, he's undermining all 3 aspects of his maximum pressure policy. He's pulling back on sanctions. He's canceling allied military exercises. And on diplomatic isolation, he's embracing someone who's on the U.S. sanctions list for human rights violations.
But diplomats, as they try to reach an agreement, the reality is that North Korea sees it as essential to their survival to have a nuclear program. Is the world going to have to accept North Korea as a nuclear power?
We can't. If we were to accept it, then we'd really undermine the Non-Proliferation Treaty, decades of U.S. non-proliferation policy, and really give a green light to other nuclear aspirants. So, it's difficult. We can't give up on it, but we just can't acknowledge them as a nuclear weapon state.
What about the fact that the United States and North Korea, in their discussions so far, haven't even come to an agreement about what denuclearization looks like?
That really shows that Kim Jong-un is no different from his father and his grandfather, that when they define denuclearization, it encompasses not only the U.S. military and the forces in South Korea, but really they see it as global arms control. We'll go to zero when you and all the other members of the nuclear club go to zero.
And Kim Jong-un deciding there to meet with President Trump at the demilitarized zone. How do you think he's been managing the diplomacy of all of this?
Well, I think he's been very deft. North Korea has always alternated between provocations and charm offensives. With North Korea, it tends to be more offensive than charming. But Kim has played, I think, a very good PR game. He's ratcheted up tensions and then allowed himself to be brought back to the table. So agreeing to this very short notice invitation from the president really showed some deft North Korean diplomacy. They usually take a very long time to make a decision.
President Trump, ahead of the upcoming election, it would be very useful for him to have a foreign policy win. I know you've spoken to those in the administration who are still taking a tough stance on North Korea, but is there any chance that they will take some concessions to be able to declare victory here?
They may, but I don't think it would be driven by the election. Some said that he would have to have a summit before last November's election, and he didn't. I think a large number of people will vote for the president and against the president, regardless of what happens with North Korea. So he can even depict a non-agreement as a success, in that he would say a strong president was willing to walk away from a bad deal, unlike President Obama with the Iran nuclear deal.
Bruce Klingner, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're watching BBC World News America.